we get a start on. So, good afternoon, everybody. Hello, and welcome to today's session. Today marks the first of 5 as we start our Science and Tech Summer Series. I'd like to first of all thank the panelists for generously giving up their time to produce and give us the knowledge and expertise that they have. I think it'll be a very beneficial session. It will be recorded, but don't worry, if you have not got your video on, we will not be able to see you. If I can just ask, as and when the session keeps going through, if everyone just keeps their mic on mute and their video off so we can concentrate on the panelists. Thank you very much. So today marks the first of our 5, and we are focusing on psychology. Everyone who should be joining us today is assumedly studying psychology or some form of psychology related degree. So we have the best panelists for you today, and I will go ahead and introduce them briefly. So our first panelist is Sarah Garand, who is a consultant organizational psychologist and EQ coach specializing in engagement and well-being. She is the CEO of the Medici Group, a leadership development and training consultancy which partners with organizations globally to provide psychology-based insights to assist clients in maintaining their leadership edge, productivity, visibility, and profitability. Sarah holds an MSc in Industrial and Organizational Psychology, an MBA in Finance, and a BSc in Computer Science and Marketing, and is about to embark on her doctoral research in human behavior psychology. Our second panelist is Katarzyna Marek, who graduated from Middlesex last year after studying a BSc in psychology with neuroscience. Since graduating, Kat has trained to be a psychological wellbeing practitioner with North West London NHS Foundation Trust. Prior to this, Kat worked as an assistant psychologist at St George's University Hospital NHS Foundation Trust. Kat has recently confirmed a place on a clinical doctorate at Royal Holloway University London and will begin her course in September. Our third panelist is Raquel Oliveira Marquez, who is currently working as the Representation and Democracy Coordinator at City University of London Students' Union. Prior to joining City, Raquel works as a graduate healthcare assistant at Elysium Healthcare, while she is also the former vice president of MDX's own Students' Union. Raquel completed her degree in psychology with criminology in 2017. Our fourth panelist is Peter Mola, who completed his studies in BSc Psychology with criminology in 2019. Since then, Peter has joined the MDX community, welcome back Peter, working as an hourly academic whilst also leading on research projects within the Department of Psychology. Prior to studying at Middlesex, Peter spent over 5 years in the Norwegian Armed Forces. Our final panelist is Judith Conte, who graduated this summer with a BSc in Psychology. Judith's university journey included a placement year at Vodafone as a human resources intern, and she did so well that they've called her to come back as a graduate HR within Vodafone's department. So thank you, panelists, and welcome aboard. I really do appreciate your presence here. And I'd like to start off by asking all of you actually to introduce yourselves and just share your story as we go along. And I'd like to start with Sarah, please.
Hi, everyone. It's great to be on this platform this afternoon. I joined Middlesex University in 1999. That's when I did my very first degree there. And I did a BSc in, what did I do my BSc in? Goodness gracious, in computing science. Sorry, I've studied so much I can't remember which is which. And then I did a summer school. One of my modules I didn't do so well in one of my programming modules because it was a computing program. So I did summer school, and in summer school, that's when I discovered psychology because I did a course in occupational psychology, and that's when my relationship with psychology started, and that's when the journey went. It sort of just fit. It was the language I understood. It was the way I think. It was my approach to the world, to life. I've always been a keen student of humanity, and that's where my journey started. And then from there, I just carried on studying. My MSc in occupational psychology was because I love everything about the organizational psychology, having teams work together, having people work happily, employee engagement. Emotional intelligence is something that's so important to me. Especially for leaders in organizations. If you've got leaders who are emotionally balanced and who are able to lead in a great way, it just filters down to the rest of the organization, and it makes everything work so well. So that's been my journey, and now I'm going on to do my research, because I just can't get over human behavior psychology. I enjoy that thoroughly. But finally, one of the things that happened when I was in my third year, I got pregnant with my second child. I'm a mom of four. And from there, that's when I got into business. So I'm an entrepreneur. And I've always done that as a way of supporting me and my family. And that's how Medici got born, because each time I sort of like studied and decided to get serious and get into the corporate world, I sort of ended up having a baby. And so I had to take time out. And so that's what embarked as well on my journey as an entrepreneur. So I've been in business for over 20 years. Everything to do with psychology, everything to do with recruitment, and just helping people better themselves. That's a bite size about me.
Thank you.
Okay, I believe I am the second panelist
Yes.
who is due to introduce themselves. So my full name is Katarzyna Marek, but I'm very happy for people to call me Kat. I joined Middlesex in 2015, and I did psychology with neuroscience with a placement year. So in between my second and third year, I did a placement year in clinical neuropsychology, and I was an honorary assistant psychologist. Honorary means only that I was unpaid, nothing extra. And in my final year, I was continuing to work as a paid assistant psychologist part-time along my studies. So when I graduated in 2019, last year, I stayed for a bit longer working as an assistant psychologist in South London in neuropsychology, which was in line with my interest. And following that, I just felt I wanted to have some more knowledge and theory to help people rather than just talking to them without really understanding what it is about and how to help them. So I applied for studies at UCL, and this was a low intensity course looking at cognitive behavioral interventions, and it's a training course, so it means that I was studying and working at the same time. And this was funded by NHS, so I didn't have to pay for the studies, and on top of that, they were paying my salary every month. So this was a great course, which comes to an end now, and I will be qualifying very soon. I passed all my assignments, so that's great. And meanwhile, I applied for a clinical psychology doctorate, which was my end goal, but I am aware that it's a very, very competitive psychology world, and you have to have quite a lot of experience. So I took this time to really get lots of hands-on experience, and I applied after having a year and a half of experience. And I managed to secure a place this year. So that's a great news. I'll be starting next month in Royal Holloway. And again, the training it is a training contract. So this means that for the next 3 years, I will be employed by NHS, and I will be studying 2 days a week, 3 days a week. For the next 3 years, I will be spending on my placements, clinical placements, during which I will be working with different population using various models and theories to help people who need it. So I believe that's my journey. On top of that, I had a little bit of research experience when I was working as a student learning assistant at Middlesex during the second and placement year, supporting the first year students with their research skills. And I have a very brief episode of working in forensic psychology, and this was when I used to work as a case manager, supporting people psychologically and in kind of social care way. When I used to work in Pentonville prison. in a male prison. But I didn't like this, and I decided I wanted to do the clinical side of things. So I think that's me in short.
Yeah, so I guess I'm next. Hi, my name is Raquel. I studied psychology with criminology. I started in 2014 and graduated in 2017. So it's been 3 years, yeah. So basically my journey at Middlesex. So I have kind of a different progress, a different journey from everyone else, because it seems like I'm not really working in psychology. So basically, just to give you an overview. So during my study, I wasn't really sure of what exactly I wanted to follow, because the whole psychology with criminology wasn't exactly what I thought it was going to be. And then in my third year, I did my dissertation in neuroscience, in neuropsychology, because as a psychology student, you get all those options that you can choose from in your third year. And this opened a lot of ideas in my mind that I wasn't really sure when I started. So basically, I went on to be, so once I finished my third year, I actually went on to be the Vice President for Health Education, Science and Technology at MDXSU. And some of the work I did was always regarding psychology. So I did some work with the counseling services. I did Study Well, as you may know, which is basically well-being activities. And I introduced the first group ever at MDX, which would look at the student well-being in a holistic perspective, joining all the departments within the university to all think how can we improve the whole student experience on the well-being side. After that, after I finished, so I did a year of VP, and then after I finished, I really wanted to do and try psychology in the actual, in the outside, not just theory. So I joined a psychology graduate scheme at Elysium Healthcare. It was a forensic secure hospital. After being there, it was great for the experience and you get a lot of knowledge, but it wasn't exactly what I initially envisioned. So that made me take a step back and really think, what do I want to do with psychology? What is the route that I'm going to take? Because, I was very unsure. I was never very sure of what exactly I wanted to do. So this is when I took a step back. I really thought about what I wanted to do. So I joined City. I'm the currently Representation and Democracy Coordinator. And once again, I'm taking care of the Study Well campaign. So all well-being campaigns and all well-being research that the Students' Union conducts, I'm the one doing it, and I'm the one collaborating with the services. And thanks to all of this research experience that I got from these small roles at the Students' Unions and these small campaigns, I got offered a place just a few days ago at City to study clinical, social, and cognitive neuroscience. So, initially I didn't expect to end up here, but I'm very happy that all of this resulted in me getting accepted in the master's. So never lose your hope. Thank you.
Okay. As for me, I first gained an interest in psychology during my my period in the army, and as an officer there, I quite enjoyed seeing my men and women go on to achieve and making them grow during their period in the military. And due to rapid deployments and kind of a busy lifestyle, I decided to get out of it, and it was a natural point then to go study psychology. I got in at Middlesex for the undergraduate there with the psychology with criminology. And during my undergraduate, I've been working in a forensic psychiatric unit on the side as well with forensic patients there. That's been really enjoyable. It's tough, I'm not gonna lie there, but it's really interesting, and the learning curve has been, it's been huge. As for going on from there, I also found research quite interesting, and for me, it was primarily quantitative research that kind of piqued my interest. So during my final year of my undergraduate, I connected with or found a supervisor I liked. We had a pretty cool project that we just published an article a couple of weeks ago on that, so that's cool. And then she took me on for another year where we're doing some neuroscience research to look into aging and memory functions. And hopefully we'll get that published. And on the side there, I have worked as an hourly paid academic teaching mostly stats and research methods to undergraduates. That's me.
I started my journey with psychology in 2016. Originally, I aspired to be a clinical psychologist. However, as we kind of got more into different modules and I discovered occupational psychology, I decided that that was my route. I didn't want to go anymore through the clinical psychology kind of way. And once I decided what I wanted to do, the following year, I just started looking for different roles within occupational psychology and what would be the route for me to get there. And I started applying for placements because I knew it was a very competitive kind of area. So I knew I would have to have experience in order to be in a good position once I left uni, for example, or just also know if I actually would enjoy it, because I kind of decided as I kind of go into the course later on. So going into my second and third year, I kind of took a gap year where I went to work and I kind of did a full thankfully, it was a paid internship, so I only looked mostly for paid internships. And it was a really good experience. It was really, really hard work, but I really did enjoy. And thankfully, out of it, I did manage to secure a role within the HR graduate scheme, which also helped me because once I came back to do my final year, I learned about different types of psychology also within my placement, which was kind of what led me to do a different type of dissertation, which I kind of did a sole dissertation with my supervisor because of what I did during my placement, which was quite good. So it kind of guided me into my final year quite well. And yeah, I think, yeah, I just kind of had a short kind of journey so far because I'm just finishing this summer, but I'm really excited to start my career this September.
Thank you all very much for sharing your experiences. And I think it's great to hear the plethora of types of degrees and the experience that you have. And it really does emphasize that a career within psychology or a career with a psychology degree isn't linear. You can take any path that you so wish. Okay, and just to further today's session, I have a few questions that I would like to ask, and the panelists will share their expertise in answering these questions. I will ask if anybody has a question that they would like to ask, if you can please utilize the chat function, which should be at the bottom of your page. That's number one. And for those who have just joined us, just to emphasize, today's session will be recorded, so you can catch up at a later time, and the link will be shared with you later on. Okay, so without further ado, the first question I would like to ask is, how did you decide what your chosen career route was going to be after you studied your degree, and what helped you kickstart your successful application process? And anybody can jump in here. So I'll just ask that again. So how did you go about deciding on your chosen career route after studying your degree? And what helped you to kickstart your application process?
As I explained, for me, just graduating now, what really what really made me choose my route within occupational psychology, I think, was we had quite a few modules where we actually had professional practice, where we were kind of taught different types of psychology, which before I wasn't as aware of, because when you think of psychology, sometimes you think of a more traditional kind of route, like clinical, rather than any other way. So when I kind of opened my eyes to any other type of psychology, that's what kind of made me more interested in just researching. And then, of course, we also had projects to explore, which was really good, I think, for me. And in terms of kickstarting my application successfully, I think for me it was just becoming proactive and just really looking what's out there, trying to connect and network with everyone that I knew had connections within that kind of area, just going on LinkedIn and just kind of adding everyone that I could know, because in the future you never know, you could just approach them. So I think that's just a great way just to successfully start in advance, because it doesn't need to be on my last year. I kind of started on my second year, kind of connecting with people beforehand, which I think really helped me to just find new connections as I kind of go into the world of work.
Thank you. I appreciate you emphasizing LinkedIn, because that is something we do try to encourage students to get on board with. I contacted some of the panelists today via LinkedIn, and it really did produce some good results. Would anyone else like to answer the same question?
Yeah, I can give like an overview. So I finished my degree with a 2-2. So when I graduated with a 2-2. This, for a student who just graduated and sees all the applications to masters and everything kind of around for like, you need to have a first or you need to have a 2-1, and if you don't, there's not many options for you. Can I just say there are so many different options, and even if you do study, for example, I studied psychology with criminology. However, now I'm pursuing neuropsychology, neuroscience, and I remember when I was at the forensic mental hospital, there were people there that studied, all types of psychology, psychology with neuroscience, psychology with criminology, just plain psychology. So nothing is a closed door when you study, psychology with a minor or even just psychology. You can go to every single route you choose to, and just for third year. So if you're going now for third years, you have a list of options to choose your supervisor. Go for the area that you think you're most passionate about, because then that can help you get some experience for the future, and that can really help you understand, what kind of area you would like to pursue in the future. And then when you go for job options, don't close the door to anything, because all experience is very valuable in the future. And even if you don't get what you wished in the beginning, you always get some kind of skills that will be great for any other opportunity that you'll definitely have in the future. I always had kind of like a mixed approach to all the jobs that I had so far. And I was very lucky that when I applied for the masters, even though I didn't have the grade, I had all the experience they wished for, especially in terms of research and everything. So you always going one step closer to your final goal. Never think that you're going further away. That's kind of my thought, because I was very panicking when I got to 2-2, and I was kind of like, okay, this is it. I'm stuck. There's nothing else I can do.
Thank you so much for sharing that, and that is something that I'm happy that you've shared with the students, because that's something that we do try to emphasize as well. You said you used a mixed approach. I was putting my thumbs on my toes up. I was like, yes, thank you. Okay, so I'll move on to the next question. We all know the current circumstances with COVID-19, and it has obviously impacted the number of job opportunities that are out there for recent graduates in particular. So what would you suggest they can be doing to learn, upskill, or develop themselves during their search?
I think one of the things touches actually on something that Raquel said. I hope I pronounced your name properly. Raquel, something that Raquel said, where you've got to be open and use a mixed approach. Don't sort of be blinkered, be very open. I really believe in the midst of chaos, opportunities are found. So I know recently there's been talk in the press about how we're going into a recession and everything. And this whole year has been clouded by fear. Everyone has been so fearful and in panic mode. And when you're in panic mode, you don't make great decisions. So I'm going to say, as much as they're saying there's not many job opportunities and you may not be able to find exactly what you want, I want to encourage anyone out there trying to get into the workspace, into the job market, be flexible, because in that flexibility is also your learning, and you'll find your natural bend. My kind of psychology is because I've always found my natural bend is in business. So that's why I love organizational psychology. My natural bent has always been towards business. Some of you may find maybe it's more the clinical, like some of the other, panelists have said. So be flexible in this time and in this COVID-19. And even if they're saying there are no jobs, you've just got to get rid of the fear. You've got to don't do the mass thing where when we all think fear and we all group think fear, that's all you'll yield. But you've got to believe in yourself and believe that, you know what, yes, they're saying there are no jobs, but I'm going to make a break. I'm going to get through. I will, find a job. I will make it. And just be very flexible and learn wherever you find yourself. And you can use that as to leapfrog to wherever you want to be. So if the next job you do, the next role you do is not necessarily what you want to be doing, use it as a learning experience. And then you can leapfrog from there to where you want to go. It gives you experience on your CV.
Thank you very much. Would anybody else like to answer the same question?
I would just like to build on that as well, just to say that I've seen online and I've been taking myself as well, quite a few free courses and free seminars that you can find. Mostly I found them actually through LinkedIn. Like I've seen that Harvard has got really good free courses as well that you can take online, which you can take anytime from now until like a few years from now. So it depends how fast and how applied you are to it, which would look really good just to have those extra accreditations, because they are still a course and they're quite still accredited from a high university or from a high places. And it's just, I think, looking for opportunities online.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Okay, moving on to our next question. Something that Sarah actually touched upon slightly, but I'd like to expand it more. And the question is, how would you recommend or encourage students to cultivate their passion when they're not sure what they want to do next? So they've studied something, or they're currently studying a psychology-based degree and they're still not sure what the next path is. How would you encourage students to cultivate their passion to help them navigate their career?
I'm going to say that in terms of the actual degree and studying, it's great for the theoretical knowledge, but how the psychology world looks in real life is very different. Yes, you use a lot of knowledge from your degree, and some of the skills that you learn are necessary for you to be able to survive and progress in the psychology world. But I think it's really important that you just put yourself out in there and try. And if you find that, for example, you try one field of psychology and you don't like it, well, that's great, because there are so many fields of psychology that if you don't like this one, you've got the whole other part of psychology to explore. So I would say give yourself some time to see whether you like it or not, because you won't know from hearing people's experiences. You won't know from reading about the field, because your experience might be very different and you might find yourself really liking what someone else said. It's not really for them. So I think try and find even the voluntary role where you can just work a few hours a week. If you can commit to more, that's great, because that will give you more insights. But on top of having your, I guess, paid job, we live in London, we all have to pay the rent, we all have to pay the bills and stuff. It's understandable. We all of the panelists, I'm sure, had a point in their life where they had to do some voluntary work experience, and none of us liked it because it was a bit annoying. But actually, the skills that we've got, we still use them, and it gave us an insight into whether we like it or not. So I would say try something, and then you make a decision.
Thank you very much for sharing that. And that is something that I tend to say, especially for students who are either going into their third year, which will be their year-long placement, or maybe their final year, to do a placement during their final year. You're using that experience to really put yourself into the field and say, is this for me? And if it isn't for me, exactly how Kat has explained it, you have so many other paths to take within the field of psychology. Psychology is far wide, vast. There's a plethora of different things you can get into. And if I was to sit here and list it all, I'd probably still be talking till tomorrow. So the options are there. Would anybody else like to answer the same question, or I can move on? Okay, so the next question I would like to ask is, this is more of a general question. Is there any advice for students and what they should be doing during their studies? So the previous question was more to do with what they should be doing now that COVID-19 is here, but as September is coming along and students are getting back into school, or should I say into university, what students should be doing during their studies to boost their knowledge and their career options?
I think Kasha mentioned some great options there with volunteering. It's a unique opportunity to volunteer and gain some experience into different areas of psychology, but at the same time, just to kind of go at it from a different angle, the university offers a lot of resources that I didn't even notice until well into my second year, many of them. But in the beginning, I would try out all of these resources, from like having the employability service help me with my CV. The learning enhancement team helps with my coursework and makes me understand how to communicate better. So after my undergraduate degree, I'm way better at communicating, and this is kind of funny, but it's very important into what the clinical work I do, because some of the patient, if I'm too if I communicate badly, they're not going to understand what I'm trying to say, and adjusting my communication to whom I'm speaking is very critical, and that's something the learning enhancement team has taught me. So trying out all of these different services that the university offers, and figuring out which ones work for me. I'm not saying you should always use them all, but figuring out which ones you like and which one work for you. That's at least been important for me to grow. And it's not just the course that you do. It's not just the modules that you do, but it's using the whole university and what it has to offer. I think LinkedIn Learning was mentioned as well. That's also a great resource that the university offers.
Thank you very much. My next question. Oh, Kat, did you want to?
I wanted to just add on top of that. So when Peter was saying make a use of what you've got available at the university, we have a huge, like if you think about people who work in psychology department, there are so many people, and you can find them on the Middlesex website when you go to the staff details, and each person has information about what they did, because you might not be aware, but we've got clinical psychologists, health psychologists, we've got social psychologists on our team. So you can reach out to them and see whether there is anything you can get involved in, whether it's any research that you can do with them, whether it's just finding out about how they found their way, and maybe they can help you to navigate your path as well. So reach out and they'll be happy to help, I'm sure.
Yeah, all that.
No, just to add on both. I think we covered everything that a student needs to do in order to fully live their student experience in terms of getting every single opportunity to boost their CV. Just going to mention one more point. I think I'm a bit biased, but the Students' Union, really go out there. Some of the training that I got safeguarding training. I got mental health first aid training. I got so much training for them, apart, from all the leadership, communication skills, everything that you need. And they even looked at, some other training that could be available there. Being a program rep, being a student voice leader, being an elected position, all of this boosts your CV. They are there, and if it wasn't for them, I know for sure I wouldn't be where I am now. So I only joined in my third year. Initially, I was a bit biased. I thought they only arrange parties. Turns out they don't. They do so much more than that. They actually have jobs for you. They have all of these opportunities for you, and they have some voluntary positions, and they are very flexible. And I would encourage you so much to actually join them. And they boost your CV. You put there because it's an extra curricular activity that you have there. It means that you not only studied and managed to do everything in your course, like Peter and Kat mentioned, but you also have the other fun perspective of you get to know other people, you get to know people with the other interests, not just psychology, everything else that builds the whole student experience that you should be enjoying at Middlesex. At least that's what got me here.
Thank you very much. Thank you. That was actually really great to hear. Okay, I think it'll be best for me to move on to the next question. And this is a question that I would like everybody on the panel to answer, please. And the question is, one tip for final year students or those who are just about to embark on their third year for them to consider to assist them in navigating their career. So one tip for a fresh graduate to consider to help them navigate their career.
Before someone else says anything, I'm going to, because someone might steal this idea. I would say find one person on LinkedIn that looks interesting to you and arrange with them a Zoom meeting. Ask them questions if they're happy to answer, because you might learn a lot from them. They might also tell you about the mistakes they've made and you can avoid them. They can link you up with someone. They might even have an opportunity in their company that they will be looking for someone, because lots of jobs aren't actually advertised, and they kind of look for people who know people. So yeah, I would say find one person and get in touch with them.
Anybody else would like to share?
You know what? That's really good, because I was going to say mentorship, and that's the same thing. Looking for someone who is where you want to go, and it's nowadays it's even easier, because what I did with some of the people I was looking at and admired is I would book half an hour of their time and say, look, can I take you for a coffee? And went and sat down with them and asked all sorts of questions. But now it's even easier, because you go onto LinkedIn, you go onto the MDX page, you go onto all sorts, and you're able to just text the person, email a person, and you can do a Zoom coffee date, and just ask them a few questions. And you'll be amazed how many people are willing to talk. So many people are just willing to talk and share their experiences. So I would encourage you to dare greatly and be courageous and just engage in a conversation. You may not even know fully exactly what it is you're trying to ask, but it's probably in the conversation that solutions and answers begin to come out. Many people are actually really willing to talk if you're just brave enough to engage with them.
For me, I would probably say attempt to do things out of your comfort zone, because even myself, like sometimes I used to be a bit like apprehensive to try and do new things, or just to, like they said, reach out to someone who potentially could become your mentor. Sometimes we get quite apprehensive and quite scared to do so, but I think those are the things that kind of push us to become better, and and the next time you won't be as scared, because you're like, oh, the worst they can say is no, and I'll find someone else who potentially say yes at some day. So just keep trying to get out of your comfort zone. Don't stay there. Literally, is the worst thing ever, I think.
I guess my tip is more of a mindset tip. It's just don't be afraid to fail, because you will. And I have 1,000 times failed, but you always get back up, and it's really not that bad. And failure is sometimes the best teacher. And as long as you kind of try to take what you've learned with you, I think most employers and opportunities appreciate that you've learned from it. And as long as the second you've kind of decided that it's not that big of a deal to fail, it will happen, and don't be afraid of it. Then you're more eager to take on opportunities that might seem frightening at first.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, all of this. But really, I really agreed with Judith. Yeah, really getting out there. I know, I mean, it's unprecedented times, as you know, it's expression everyone uses now. COVID-19, even if you're going to third year, second year, or you're joining MDX now, or even if you just graduated, can I just say, like, do all of this, but also take a step back and take care of yourself, and all the opportunities will be there as long as you are okay with everything. Because I think there's a lot of pressure for, you know, students right now to be successful, to go out there and to seek all the options. And there are options. Don't feel scared that there might be nothing out there because of COVID-19. There's a lot of job options. Most of everything is online now. You have teaching opportunities, you know, for students with learning disabilities. You have, you know, hospitals are still open. You can still work there. There are many entry-level positions for you, but really take a step back. And as Peter said, don't be afraid of failing, because I sent, I don't know how many job applications, and not everyone got back to me, or not everything was exactly what I thought it would be. But, you know, it will be okay, and everything will work out. But the things I use, basically LinkedIn, Google, you know, all the psychology assistant psychologists, everything that I could find, even like the psychology graduate schemes are very good as well. And yeah, that's kind of my advice. But yeah, just to assure you, there are loads of opportunities still out there, and we'll get over this, hopefully.
Thank you. Oh, okay.
I have one final thing. I'll be brief. It's like, in my background, I'm a former officer. I know how to program or code. I do neuroscience and research there, and I also do some clinical work. I'm not the best at any of those. I'm not the best officer. I'm not the best programmer. I'm not the best neuroscientist. And I'm definitely not the best to work with clinical work. But I have a unique combination of things that no one else have, and that gives me an advantage. And I'm sure everyone on this panel and everyone in the meeting has a unique combination that I can't compete with in certain if in a certain context. And using your background to your advantage, even though you're not necessarily the world champion of anything, you will have a unique combination. And finding those aspects of yourself can be really useful in selling yourself to whoever wherever you're looking for a job.
Thank you very much. And I'd like to round off with the final question, which potentially should have been asked before the question you just answered. However, a lot of conversations I have with students are based around skills, and the skills they should be emphasizing, the skills that are relevant in the field of psychology. Now that you've had either experience in a work placement or you're working in the world of work, what skills would you emphasize that students should either develop or should work on?
That's a tough one for me, because psychology is a very unique, at least I think so, is a very unique discipline where if you're a programmer, you can do well in psychology. And if you're a leader, you need to know a bit of psychology. And if you're a clinician, you would need to know psychology. There's so many things you can do, and they all require different skills. And finding it's hard, but if you don't have a goal of where you want to go yet, I would go broad, I think, and try to gain a bit of skill in different typical aspects of psychology, or sub-disciplines of psychology. And once you find what skills you enjoy, you usually find the sub-discipline you'd like as well. It's hard to say that, oh, you should definitely go and learn this or that. It really depends on what aspect of psychology you want to go into. But it was mentioned that theory and practice are very different. They're important. Both of them are important, but they're very different. So I would suggest that if you're only going to university, try to also get some experience in whatever you're looking to do, whether it's research or clinical work or whatever it is.
I think to add to that, I would say also things like CPD courses, and committing yourself to being a lifelong learner. and trying to read the relevant published articles within your field or within the field that you're interested in, so that you're always cutting edge and you're always abreast with the changes that are happening. We're living in a time when a lot of change is happening at great speed, you know, so there's a lot of change and a lot of innovation. So once you find your niche and what it is that you're interested in, and even if you don't know what your niche is, you may find you're interested in several things. Always try and be learned up and read up and up to speed in what's happening in that market or in that industry or in that school of thought or in that subject. That also helps to help you evolve as well in your career and in all the different things and the routes that you're going to take. It helps you to evolve. If you're abreast with what's happening in real time, you evolve in real time and you're never lagging behind a movement or a thought process that's taking place. So really just commit yourself to being a lifelong learner.
I would say probably also when I was in my placement, because there was a lot of graduates there already that had came from Cambridge, Oxford, different types of universities that would also in Vodafone. And what the managers kind of also mentioned is that a lot of them, even though they had all this theory and they were quite knowledgeable and they were really smart, they really did lack soft skills, which was like clear communication, listening skills, being somewhat assertive, or just having people skills basically. So I think sometimes we get so much caught up in having the knowledge, but we don't actually develop ourselves. When we get to the job market, then we sometimes are not the best at what we're doing, not because we don't have the knowledge, but because we are not good talking to people, understanding people, or just seeing the needs that are out there. So I would say develop yourself as much as you're developing your knowledge as well.
Thank you very much. And that brings to a close the questions that I had specifically. What I'd like to do is just quickly have a read through some of the questions that are in the chat group and share one or two if that is okay with the panel. And I'd like to emphasize, everyone who is here today, please do look at the chat, because some of our panelists and other attendees have actually sent in some really good links for you to have a look at in terms of free courses and how you can connect with Middlesex University Students' Union. Okay, so first question is, this may be going either a way back, but what I will try and do is bring it currently. Where would you suggest students find placements or work experience? So I know we've discussed LinkedIn and trying to relate with people via that route, but do you have any other ideas or suggestions? Okay,
I can talk about how I found my placement. There weren't any clinical placements at the time when I was looking for a placement. So I took a speculative approach and I just sent an email, which I think was proofread by Middlesex Employability Service. And I sent it to the clinical psychologists I could find on NHS website. I explained who I am and sent my CV, and I said, this is what I'm looking for. Would it be possible to find this experience with you? And taking this approach, actually, many people didn't get back to me. Many people said, we don't want you. But one person, and that one was enough out of those 30 or whatever, they said that, yes, we do those placements. They weren't advertised because they didn't have any agreement with our university, but they were happy to give me an interview and they accepted me. So I think reach out to companies and people and just see, maybe they will offer you something.
Thank you very much. I'm really glad you emphasized the speculative approach. That's great. I feel like you guys are doing my job for me, which is like, okay, perfect. This is good. Is there any other input in that regard? Whilst I search for another question. Okay, so the last two questions we have are quite specific. So I'll probably choose one, but I will say to Annie, the person who's called iPhone, and Usman, I will get back to you and answer your questions. But what I will choose out of the questions is, due to COVID, the volunteering opportunities are quite limited. this person has tried to apply for volunteering roles, but because of COVID, they are still unable to take the person on due to changes and budgets. What would you suggest that they do? So I know that isn't something we could potentially manage per se, but if going into the workplace isn't possible for volunteer work experience, what would you suggest somebody does or looks for? I'm sorry, that's actually a hard question because I'm sitting here thinking, okay, I need a few minutes myself.
Peter? Okay. This is quite broad, but if right now they are limited and they have replied to you that, they're still unable because of, changes and budgets and all of that. I know a lot of companies are reviewing their budgets during the summer, so they know exactly what to expect starting in September. So I would definitely encourage you to, reapply or send new emails in September because the new financial year is starting now after August. And another advice I would give, because that's kind of out of everyone's control really, because it's the company's side. One advice that I would give you, there are a lot of free courses online. I know some of them have been posted on the chat. Free courses, LinkedIn Learning, everything that you can take to add to your CV. So you already have all of this experience, even if it's just for now your course. But all of these little things really help in the future. And LinkedIn Learning is very useful. Free courses are very useful. And you can, when you go to the interviews, you can always use them again, because the people who are hiring you see that as proactivity. They see that you want to learn more, and this makes you more employable, more desirable for the company, because they know you're eager to learn and you're eager to get there, because you got to know initially, but you improved yourself and you worked harder in order to achieve that opportunity. So it's always a plus to go back there, send another email and be like, oh, during this time, because I know there was this unprecedented times happening at the moment, I actually managed to develop myself and do a few other courses, and will definitely appreciate all the work that you bring yourself.
Thank you very much. I believe Sarah has something.
Yeah, I was going to say again, it was totally outside of the box as well. For one of my companies, we've needed research, but I haven't had the time. And so what we've done is we've actually, we've got a university student who is based in Africa, who is our Girl Friday. So she's done all the research for us. All I simply do is I tell her, this is what I need, this is what I was thinking. We sit down, we have a brainstorm meeting on Zoom. She's in Africa, I'm in Buckinghamshire. And it's been amazing because we've actually managed to move and do so many things that are just inside here. I would like to do them, but then because I'm now accountable to this young student, she's trying to apply to go and study in Canada next year, but at the moment she needs to earn some money while she's at home. So it's worth me having a virtual PA. So that's something else where it's hard to go and volunteer because everything seems to be shut down. But there's so many of these unusual opportunities that are opening up, and so I really encourage you guys out there, think outside of the box. This young girl is into she wants to study architecture. But it's completely different what she's doing for us. But she's doing research and she's helping us to move forward in our organization. So think outside of the box and push yourself out of the bounds of your comfort zone and what you think you know. Because when you go out of there, there's so much learning to be done, which I said again, helps you ultimately in the bigger picture.
Thank you so much. And I wanted to actually say be open-minded, but Sarah and Raquel have literally just taken it out of my mouth. So I think if there's any takeaway, there's so many golden nuggets that have been shared today. Be open-minded and be flexible with what is ahead of you, especially in these circumstances. And that brings today to a lovely end. I am really grateful for everyone who was able to attend today. I'm really grateful for Peter, Judith, Raquel, Sarah, and Kat joining us today. Thank you very much for sharing your knowledge and your experience. As I mentioned before, today's session has been recorded and will be shared with everyone who's attended, and also will be found on the portal on Moodle, I believe. So I think that's it. Thank you very much for joining us today. Your presence has been greatly appreciated. Bye.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you. Take care.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.